During our last episode of the Zeitgeist Show, we introduced the idea of Occam's razor. This is that the simplest answer is usually the right one. We concentrated our efforts of understanding the universe on things as they really happened in the past and as they are really happening presently, and as they will really be happening in the future. Our efforts were focused on things as they are really happening presently, what we can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. So let's continue with the real truth as the foundation of our learning. Folks, nothing except the real truth matters. Everything else is speculation, opinion, or belief. Things that we cannot see, we cannot hear, we cannot smell, we cannot taste, or we cannot touch. Let's consider what is really happening presently. To do so, it's important that we focus on something that is probably causing more problems for humanity than anything else. Mental health. The psychological and behavioral patterns of the human mind. The overall mental health of humanity is steadily worsening. And the more the doctors, psychologists, therapists, and science study the problems and attempt to come up with the solutions, the problems seem to be getting a lot worse. So how much more education do mental health professionals need? If the more they're educated, the worse things become, then how can we trust what they're learning? Believing, because of their education and degrees, that they can help humanity, these mental health care professionals are trying all kinds of things to mitigate the mental problems that people have. Again, things are getting worse, much worse. Consider the billions of dollars, the billions of lives that are affected by the billions of opinions, because everyone has an opinion. You know, everyone's right, which makes everyone wrong. What a waste of time and money, all in an effort to find some panacea that will solve this human dilemma. Let's get real for a moment, folks. Yeah, let's talk some real truth, things as they really are happening presently. In spite of all the time, money, and effort, suicide rates continue to go up in our world exponentially as more humans appear to learn about each other. What's happening inside of the mind of a person wanting to end their life? Why do they have these thoughts? What was happening in their daily lives that caused them to consider taking their own life? The reason why nothing is working is because the solutions to all of these types of human psychological and behavioral problems happen inside the head of the person experiencing the thought. In order to understand the thought process properly, so that we can come up with solutions to these processes, these cognitive processes, the real truth about our brains and how they function must be the solid foundation upon which we base all of the solutions that will actually work. If we try to come up with a solution based on anything other than the way things really are happening presently inside of our heads, then whatever we are learning, no matter how much, we'll never be able to come up with the right solutions. Consider the thought process behind suicide and murder. The process involved in both of these actions is the same. Well was it once said, quote, "The man who kills a man kills a man. A man who kills himself kills all men. As far as he is concerned, he wipes out the world," unquote. What's going on in a person's world that makes them want to kill themselves? Again, it is the same process of thought that a murderer uses to justify the act of killing another person. Something is wrong in this person's life. But what could be so bad that a person would want to end their existence or end the existence of another? Another incredible statement was made, although its original Greek was made correctly, and it was later changed by the leaders of people, because upon changing this incredible statement, these leaders caused an untold number of psychological and behavioral problems that revolve around suicide and murder. The statement was originally, "Thou shalt love thyself with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind." And what follows was just as profound and powerful. "Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself." When these corrupt leaders changed the first thyself and replaced it with God, these leaders, who are the only ones telling their followers who God is and what God requires of them, these corrupt ones took control of the thought processes of their followers. If God didn't love your neighbor and wanted your neighbor dead or punished, God would command it of his followers. This single change has caused more suicides and murders than any other statement. If a person is taught that they must love God with all their heart, with all their soul, with all their might, then whatever or whenever God commands the person who is really being commanded by corrupt leaders, that person must obey in order to demonstrate their love for God, regardless of what it does to their neighbor. The idea of loving yourself first and foremost will then help a person love their neighbor as their self. A person can only love their neighbor as much as the person loves their own self. Imagine what kind of a world we would have if everyone loved themselves and their neighbors as they do themselves. This basic principle is the most important part of the real truth about who we are as human beings, how we think and act, and what we do when we act upon our thoughts. Understanding how our brain works requires a few things from us to think about. We need to know why our brain works, what makes it work, who makes it work, where it first started to work, and when it first started to work. These are important questions that must be answered before we're really going to understand what our brains are all about. There are three things that we must consider, and one of these three things is a very important question that we got to ask ourselves honestly. We must consider who we really are, why we really exist, and the very important question, do we continue to exist after death? And only you can answer this question for yourself. There are a lot of people who do not believe that we live after we die. That statement right there doesn't even make any sense. Living after you die? Are you dead or alive? And if these are correct, there will be no argument or discussion, nor will it matter. If there is no consciousness after the earth experience has ended, if you're one who doesn't believe that there is any human existence after death, and I don't blame you one bit because of all the weird beliefs, opinions, and ideas that don't make a lick of sense, if you're one of these, there's no need to continue watching this presentation. I got nothing for you, folks. See ya. Oh yeah, wouldn't want to be ya, but anyways. However, for those of us who do believe that we continue to exist after death, we have a whole lot to learn about this real truth. So, in our quest to understand human reality, who we are and why we exist, let's begin by discussing a few things as they are really happening presently in our world. Regardless of how you might think we came to be, humans exist. Each day, we wake up and experience a conscious existence, pursuing things that each of us chooses to do. Often we see each other as different people just because of our outward appearances. Some of us are darker, some of us are lighter, and sadly, these differences have divided us, causing us to feel separated instead of united as a human race. The human race has divided itself by borders and ideologies. We call these types of divisions nations and opinions. These physical and emotional divisions, instead of helping us to remain like little children, cause us to fear and hate each other. At first we knew nothing about race, religion, culture, or borders, and anything else that divides us. As little children, we were innocent, held no opinion about another little child. How it's supposed to be. At first we know nothing about race, religion, culture, borders, and everything else that divides us. As little children, we were innocent and held no opinion about any other little child. But as we grew, our opinions and prejudices grew with us. We learned to speak our opinion and defend it against others. Now I'll re-record all this, cause to hate each other and walk away from each other, isolating ourselves from the borders that we defend. I'll redo these recordings. We do everything that we can to defend our borders and these opinions. And we defend what we believe is right against what we believe is wrong. Because of this, we face daily wars and rumors of wars. As we fight each other, our weapons get more sophisticated. Our sticks and stones evolve into armor and swords. Time goes by and our guns turn into more sophisticated weapons to kill and destroy us easily. Terrorist groups get their hands on these. Where they might have sticks and stones, they'll soon have guns, and soon, nuclear weapons.
Gender divides us because we can't figure out why.
I'll redo these. Gender divides us because we can't figure out why we're born. Our brain makes us identify as somebody different, blah, blah, blah. Keep going on, blah, blah, blah.
Race divides us.
And race divides us because stand for our rights, demand others respect our opinion. It's just a test.
Regardless, many times, whether or not.
Then there's religion. Religion is probably, it is, the single human opinion that has caused more division, more war, and more destruction on the human race than any other thing. In a single blast, millions of those with whom we disagree because of our opinions, because of culture, ethnicity, and other things, are instantly destroyed. We must stop arguing. Contention only leads to fear and hate, which causes human division and misery. Real truth must prevail, or the contention will never stop. It takes a lot of energy to do all that arguing, fearing, hating, hurting each other, and causing so much human misery. So where does all this energy come from? Let's begin with an explanation of real truth about our existence as human beings. Let's start with a couple of things that we cannot argue. We cannot argue competently, logically, or reasonably about the real truth that we exist and use up a lot of energy in doing so. Now, I think we can all agree that consciousness is the ability of a person to exchange energy within the environment in which the person's physical body exists. This is also known as life experience. So how does an energy exchange between our body and our environment create life experiences? Well, let me see if I can explain it.
In order to use any of our senses, energy must first enter our brain through one of them. Each time this energy enters our brain, it causes our brain to create a brand new cell. These new cells are created differently, though. Depends on which sense we're using at the time. When we touch something, the energy of the thing we touch enters through our skin and goes to our brain, where it forms a brand new touch cell. When we taste something, the energy enters through our mouth and goes to our brain, where it forms a brand new taste cell. And when we smell, see, or hear something in our environment, whatever it is that we are tasting, seeing, or hearing, forms a brand new cell that corresponds with whatever type of energy came from our environment and made its way to our brain. Our planet Earth has a lot of different forms and types of energy. When we are born on Earth, our body starts to act upon this energy, or this energy starts to act upon our body. As this energy exchange takes place, we start to develop a life experience. Our brain is the only organ in our body that can have an experience and store it so we can think about it and remember it later. Every other part of our body is simply a tool that our brain uses to take in energy from our environment or put energy back into it. The best definition of consciousness is the ability of the brain to receive energy from an environment in which the body exists and also to be able to
No, I gotta say that I gotta fix these. A lot of this, when our brain is receiving energy from the world through our senses, this is a conscious life experience, and but what happens when our brain releases energy back into an environment through our senses? Haven't narrated these yet. I'll get to it. And when our brain
puts energy back into the environment through our senses, what happens? Think about it. If one of our taste brain cells' energy goes back in the environment, then what are we going to taste? Or better yet, who is going to be doing the tasting? When one of our seeing brain cells releases its energy back into the environment, then what are we going to see? Or better yet, who is going to be doing the seeing? Same goes for smell, touch, and hearing. What are we going to smell, touch, and hear? And better yet, who is going to be smelling, touching, and hearing in an environment outside of our brain? The answer is really pretty simple, but not so simple. There's only one way that our brain puts energy back into the environment through our senses: when we dream. Yet it's our dream. Yep, it's our dream self who is seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching in a completely different environment than the world from which our brain takes in energy. Let's see if we can make it a little bit more clear and simple. When our brain releases energy, our brain forms a new experience, but not outside of the soup in which all of our brain activity is taking place. This energy creates our dream experience. When our brain puts energy back into the environment through our senses, what happens? Think about it. Here's
No, I
kind
gotta
of an
say, I gotta
example,
re-narrate
picture,
this whole
animation
thing. I'm not done with
how
it yet.
our brain
Just trying to do a test movie here. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing on this current slide. We went over in the last guy show that the sun is made of energy. It consists of the energy that is provided by the dark matter and from the sun. The energy of the sun, we're able to produce the earth, which also is from dark matter. And on earth, we of course have an apple. And then we have our cells, and we have all of our senses that can see, hear, taste, and touch the apple. Okay? So, all that happens in our brain. I have narrated all this here. I'm not done with it yet. All this happens in our brain. I want to explain this transference of energy. How do we get the apple's energy into our brain? Well, that's simple. The apple is made up of energy too, and when we see the apple, it goes into our brain as a sight cell. What we see when we smell the apple, what we smell goes into our brain and is found establishes a smell cell. This is how I'm going to explain it. The energy of an apple, when we hear it, we hear the crunching of that apple, or we hear the crunching of the leaves when we're going up the apple tree to pick it, it goes into our brain as a hearing cell. And that apple provides energy that we can touch when we pick it up and feel how it feels. That makes a touch cell. And of course, when we eat that apple, the energy is transferred to our brain as a taste cell. And that there, folks, increases the size of our brain, although minutely. See if I can make it even better. So what happens when the energy, remember, the energy of the sun and the earth that were created from dark matter. Dark matter is not matter, it's actually energy, and I'll explain this better. And from all that came the apple. So, and from that, we've got all these cells in our body, in our brain, about this apple. So what happens when our brain releases this energy back into our environment? It doesn't go outside of our brain. It does not. The brain becomes the world in which the energy from these cells is released. And once it is, that apple becomes part of the world that's created inside of our brain. So is the person who actually we are, and this is our dream self. And that's how I'm going to explain that the best I can. This one is the brain is a highly sophisticated organic computer processor. Information comes to the computer from the environment. It stores this information. It can also create virtual worlds, which all kinds of experiences take place. Something like this, but it's not our real world. The world is being created inside the computer. It's an organic computer, just like computers do. However, we can view the world that the computer is creating if we have the right hardware, the right monitor, which I'll explain too, with which to interpret the energy that the computer is sending out. I'll explain a lot more about this. Then the big stuff. Our brain creates experience by drawing in energy from our environment. These are conscious experiences. And when our brain releases energy, it subconsciously creates dream life experiences. That's how the human brain works. And I'm going to talk about, the 4 types of humans. I'm going to get into this. I'm going to explain all these different states of consciousness that are happening in the brain. True self, advanced self. I haven't narrated these. And then, of course, our dream self, which is subconsciously creating the dreams in our brain. And then the mortal or perfect mortal bottle is, of course, consciously creating subconscious experiences, life experiences, as they would be known by our semi-eternal perfect self. And, of course, this one also is creating life experiences, daily experiences that become the subconscious experiences of our true self. And I'm going to explain about these simple veils and how the true self is blah, blah, blah. I got a lot to do about that. I got to talk more about the real truth. I want to explain how we exist in this solar system, in this world. That's where we are. in this solar system, and then there's that in our conscious state, there's a line there between consciousness and subconsciousness. In our subconscious self, when our brain releases energy back into itself, which creates our dream self, that's how it's done. This transference of energy, this conservation of energy, if I may. This is how it's done. There's a lot more, and then, of course, our mortal self is the subconscious part of our semi-eternal perfect self, which exists in another solar system in our galaxy, or it could be in any other galaxy. I got to explain all that stuff, blah, 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 and that our semi-eternal perfect self, our daily conscious experiences are the subconscious experiences of our eternal, never-changing, perfect chance self, where we're born, that's where we do our daily experiences, and when we die, we simply stop existing and become our true self, the only one that really matters. And I'm going to get on to explaining more about this eternal, never-changing, perfect person who is our true self. And I'm going to talk about something that's important: conservation of energy, how we maintain a balance of energy in our brains. And that energy in is a conscious new life experience, and energy out is a subconscious new life experience. I'll explain more about this, and the most important thing of all, what this conservation of energy, how it's physically experienced in the human mind as feelings of joy and happiness. Probably one of the most important parts I'm going to clearly explain. Now I've got these other slides I'm putting together, and I'm going to explain how the energy of the apple gets inside of our brain through daily life experiences, and then how those daily life experiences creates. We think about them. They're already there in that world inside of our brain. They're already there, and we have to think about it so we can remember what that apple's all about. I'm talking about memory. I'm going to talk about again how this thought process, how we daydream, and then how our dreams are created subconsciously at night. Trying to find up some good things, and then I'm going to get into the reality of our who we are.
Most of the new human bodies created on Earth are
Gotta
the
fix
result
the
of a sexual contribution
sound
from a person who possesses sperm and one who possesses an egg. We know, however, that cloning and other advancements in biological exploration and engineering will lead to other ways that the human body can be created. Regardless of the process that is used in creating a new human body, a unique creation environment must be present so that cells can divide and grow to become a recognizable human body. In this environment, we are unconscious. We do not exchange energy with this environment. All of our energy comes through the umbilical cord. With sexual reproduction, there is great pain and sorrow in bringing a new person into the world. When the new body takes its first breath, the exchange of energy between the new person and the environment begins. There is a lot of pain and sorrow also associated when our body ends its connection with the environment. When this exchange of energy with the environment ends, the physical body is pronounced dead.
Again, I got to redo the whole thing in the proper microphone, blah, blah, blah. I got this cool side that I'm going to learn. Death is something that's been argued about a lot. When our body disintegrates, returns the elements of the environment which is created, what happens then? I'm going to say some cool things. I like this little clip, so that's why I'm playing it. Anyways, so here we are. Our first breath is what begins a new life experience for us. That's right. But what happens? What causes that first breath? Is there entity of energy? Is something entering into us? Yes, it is. I'm going to explain all that, because once it does, upon our first breath, that's when we start having a new life experience. I got to redo this because this kid's going to start crying like that. When it first breath, the energy exchange starts creating new life experiences, which are recorded in our brain. That's right. Anyway, I'll explain a lot about that. Then I'm going to get into, this energy body, this spiritual body. Well, what is this spiritual energy body that's inside us that makes us happy? That wasn't there, obviously, when we're inside the womb, because, we'd start passing energy back and forth inside the womb, which I explained previously, only comes to the mother from the umbilical cord or from whatever process will be provided by science in the future. And we get into this. The most humans believe or want to believe that death is not the end of our existence. But once this energy exchange stops here, then what happens? There's so many different beliefs about offered that center around a spiritual body leaving the physical body upon death. The fact is, it's all about the conservation of energy. It's all about energy. What happens to it? What happens to that energy? Which leads us to the question, what is this spiritual body? Now I have to explain this even clearer, so I'm going to find other ways. I found this way, this cool, another cool clip, which I'll talk about this separation of body here, what people believe, and that there's an exchange of energy still going on. But where does it go on? Yeah, this exchange of energy happens, in another solar system. It's exactly where it is. Anyway, I'm going to explain that shit the best I can, use it the best I can. Then whatever energy entered our body upon taking our first breath had to be the exact same energy that left our body upon taking our last breath. Talk about that. Got some cool things to say about this. We'll say it. Blah, 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 blah. Anyways, do that. And I think that's about where I'm at, because there's going to be a lot of other cool shit that's coming out. And that I'm going to talk about, a couple other things. I haven't done anything with that. But anyway, basically explain what happiness is. Happiness, the pursuit in this life, how and why we should always be pursuing happiness. The most important thing is to be able to pursue our individual happiness, because this is the only way we're going to be able to keep our incredible brain alive. I don't know if I'm going to use these things. I might. Anyway, lots to say, lots to do. And that ends that. Just show you where I'm at. Thanks for watching. Oh, no.